Hello, Mike.
Hello,
Good to have you here. Do you want to explain who you are and what you do and why you're here?
Yeah, I work for PALAQ, which is the Professional Association of Lecturers in Youth and Community Work, which has been going about almost 50 years now. And I've been a youth worker and taught in youth work for about 20 odd years.
So to set the scene, as you know, since 2008, youth work has the rule of 2/3. We've lost 2/3 of the money from government. We've lost 2/3 of the courses.
Yeah.
We've probably lost 2/3 of the projects. And that appears to be levelling out a little bit as far as we can tell. The decline in courses has kind of levelled off. There's increasing demand for youth workers. We know that the employers are really struggling to find qualified staff. The MYA's got an ambition to have 10,000 professionally qualified staff across the country in the next 6 or 7 years. And what I wanted to ask you was where do we think they're going to come from, and how can we ensure that the current training landscape is producing youth workers who are good and who represent the communities that they're working with to fill those jobs and to fill the extra jobs that hopefully we're going to create?
I mean, you've got a strange contradiction, haven't you? Because you've got this situation where people want JNC qualified staff, but people aren't coming on the courses.
Yeah.
You know, and courses are dwindling and disappearing. So, which sounds like an almost contradiction. So it's like, okay, so why is that going on? I think one of the challenges is, historically, how people got in to be a youth worker is that you'd probably go to your local youth club. You might become a leader. You might do like a level 2 or 3 course, start doing some work, and then hopefully you might even get sponsored to do a degree, and you'd be sent to do kind of part-time work. And people would come to us as universities and go, they used to say things like, are you JNC? Yeah, can I be day rates to come do that? That's what's broken.
Right.
You know, I think that's what's broken, is those traditional paths of how people come in.
And what do you think the blockers to those routes are? Because there's a few things that have changed, aren't there? So employers don't have as much money.
Yeah.
Course fees are more expensive.
Yeah.
And students are responsible for them. Are there any others? Are those real blockers, do you think?
I suppose there's that blocker, which is, you know, do I want to spend, and by the time you cost it out, 50 grand on going to university for a career where I'm not sure what I'll get out at the other end of it. And even if there are jobs, they might be not very highly paid, part-time, 9 months in duration. And I think people just make a calculation. And if you're looking at diversity, you know, I mean, my area of research is looking at widening participation. Working class students go, well, that ain't worth it. Why would I pay that? So that's one of the difficulties that you get. So it's how you break that, you know, how you shift that. That's why I think things like the apprenticeship, which in some ways feels new, but in lots of ways is actually just a kind of reinvention. And I don't mean that negatively, of what it used to be, where people got supported by the local authority or the employer and came through that. So that's one of the ways of doing it that I think might make a difference.
One of the barriers I think that is real is the cost of a course in relation to what people are likely to be earning immediately after. There's job security, and that's something else that we need to work on, professionalise the profession. In terms of diversity across socio-economic things, across racial backgrounds, across disability, youth and community work courses are often better and more diverse in terms of their recruitment than any other course in the university. They're wonderful at it. We're very proud of that. It's good. But we do have this problem where we do appear to be kind of plateauing in terms of student recruitment, and we've touched upon professionalising the career, making the career more secure and prestigious, I suppose, is one thing, respected. Is there anything else about how we can offer routes or offer encouragement to the workforce to get them into youth work, or to get them qualifying if they already are youth workers?
Well, I suppose it's developing pathways, and whether you do it through universities or not, it's looking at how do we keep something that keeps the integrity we want to have, but at the same time responds to what the market is, you know. And that's always difficult. Again, it's looking at how do we do this with integrity rather than just do it quickly, you know, and in a way that doesn't have integrity. So, there's worries, So I don't think any of these things are impossible, but it's finding how do we do this that keeps integrity, and it might be that you have very different routes, degrees, if it's going to stay as a degree, can run over 6 years, 4 years, 3 years. There are models of keeping it hybrid, and that's always existed. But I suppose it's the integrity within that.
So in terms of the role university, because obviously universities have got a role in educating and training professionals. There's a research role as well.
Yeah.
What roles could or can or do the universities play in reaching out into the communities that they're working in? So how would the course at, at Sunderland reach out and have an impact on Janet and Darren's Kids and Karate Club on the estate?
Yeah. To make a degree work, you have to do this. One of the kind of, I suppose, stereotypes of academics is that we're distant, we're in an ivory tower, we don't understand practice, all of those kinds of things. If I'm being really honest, if you look at those accusations of the university in itself, can be true. Historically, maybe a lot of the youth work academics because haven't always done the research, but increasingly we are doing stuff. And then it can back up. Some of the presentations we had this morning, making the economic case for youth work, that's where we can partner, because we do that research, we have to do that research, and we can bring in some monies that can make those work. So I think the opportunities to work together on that is huge.
Because this is people in the youth work world we're talking about, practitioners and employers and whatever else. What about the wider community? Because youth work has a profound effect, we know that, on young people and therefore on communities. But young people don't necessarily know what youth work is, and their parents know that we're a safe pair of hands, but don't necessarily know what youth work is. Should they? Can they? What can we do about it if they need to?
Yeah. On the ground, we have placements where we can start building those messages, but there is that disjunct of people don't know what youth work is. And certainly as a young person thinking, if I'm going to go for a career, those roots have broken.
Well, and there is a problem, isn't it, with audience, which is, if you look at the roles that youth workers perform, you can take 20 youth workers, there's some that are abseiling down a cliff with a bunch of young people doing DV, there's others that are working in arts and theatre and very much in the sort of cultural environment, there's others that are working with people in prison, there's others that are working in hospitals, and so the role of youth work is hugely diverse, and there's common threads that we're aware of, but how do we go about, is there a way in which we can draw together all that diversity of practice under the one umbrella, so that we understand that, but so that other people understand that within all of those things there is this common thing called youth work, and describe it. How can NYA and universities work together to do that? What do we need to do you think?
The tension, I suppose, is you want to have a kind of identity that people can work towards, but you also wanted to have some coherence. So some of it can be getting people to see that what the skills they're doing is something like youth work. But when does that become so diffuse that people can't relate to it? So I suppose the question is, are we trying to get people to see themselves as youth workers so that they can actually have a professional identity, or is it just trying to bring people in to do the courses? I think the biggest, most youth work is probably delivered in schools and the health authority now, but they won't necessarily see themselves as youth workers. And we want them to. But do they want to?
Well, there's a value, I think, in us communicating to those sectors what youth work brings. And we've had conversations about this before, haven't we? Relational practice and the idea that youth workers, because of their relationship, can offer challenge and have accepted, have privileged intimate knowledge of young people and their cultures and their environments and all that sort of stuff, which other sectors don't get, and all of that's advantageous to all these other sectors. So again, we've touched on an awful lot. We talked on accessibility, we talked about the common threads, we talked about allied sectors. If you had 3 things to say, the key 3 things that you needed to communicate to Dave and Jenny off the estate, not necessarily trying to get them into youth work, but given what we talked about what youth work is, about how youth work affects them maybe, or getting them into qualification, what would those 3 messages be?
Well, what I'd like to say, I'm not sure if I can say quite yet, is that it is a career. Youth work is more than just getting on with young people. And part of the reason I think you need training is to recognise that. You know, it's got management skills, it's got all kinds of skills that you do. And while I'd agree, we were talking earlier about relationship is at the centre, you know, we have a relationship with people, it's actually all the stuff that you need to do that surrounds that. So just to say, this is a complicated job, and therefore it needs sophisticated training. And the third message is, you can do that. And I think if we lost youth work in the universities, who goes to universities would shift.
So those are 3 areas that we've got to work on together, I suppose.
Yep,
And
yeah.
3 areas that we need to bear in mind with the launch of the new apprenticeship as well. Making sure that,
Yeah, and I think all these things are possible. And yeah, again, we need to work together on that.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. That's a lot to chew over. Good to see you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
I will do, and you know, we'll look forward to working together as we always do.
Always.
As we always do.
Cheers, mate.